Hello dear tea friends from around the world. Welcome to a new tea class with me, Stéphane Erler, the founder of the Tea Masters blog and the tea-masters.com tea boutique. Today we continue on our journey through the oolongs of Taiwan, and this is the class for this semester. I've set up a sampler to study the oolongs from Taiwan in my boutique. You can find it in the rubric in the category samplers. And after studying Alishan Jinxuan, Qingxing from Alishan, Qingxing from Shan Lin Xi, today we are going to study another Qingxing from Shan Lin Xi, but this time the process is different. So far, the three previous oolongs we have studied were all high mountain oolongs with a very light oxidation level and almost no roasting. The difference were either the cultivar, Jinxuan or Qingxing, and or the difference was the mountain, two from Alishan, one from Shan Lin Xi. Now today we stay again on the Shan Lin Xi mountain, but this time we have a roasted oolong. That is one of the most famous oolongs actually also in Taiwan. It is known also as Dongding Oolong. So here it is. And the reason I'm doing this class today after the Shan Lin Xi Qingxing high mountain oolong from last week, which is here, I still have some. This has a purpose, is also kind of to compare the two. Now, if you remember last week, we were drinking this one, very green, and now this today, this one is much darker in color, brown green, dark brown, dark green, whereas last week it was very green, fresh green, and a completely different smell. So two different tea profiles, but actually these are the same leaves. The only difference between these two leaves is the roasting that was added on this compared to the high mountain Shan Lin Xi. So let's. So this is really a very interesting comparison to understand also the power of roasting, hongbei in Chinese, what it adds to the leaves in terms of scents, flavors, and taste and aftertaste. Okay, we put our high mountain oolong back in the box and we'll focus on this tea, which has many names. So we've seen already one, Dongding Oolong. It can also be called simply a roasted oolong, or it can also be called Hongshui Oolong. Hongshui means red water because the brew has a much darker, redder color. Hongshui Oolong can also have a different meaning. It can also mean higher oxidized oolong, almost red tea. But it can also mean Dongding Oolong. The names are plenty. Every farmer sometimes has his own habits of using one name rather than another. That's why it can be very confusing. So that's why I'm giving you all the different names so that that you're not surprised that some people will call the same name, the same tea with a different name. We've seen also Dongding Oolong, Hongshui Oolong, competition Oolong, because actually this one comes from the Dongding competition organized by the Lugu Farmers Association. Lugu being the larger village in the Dongding area where you find lots of tea farmers. They have an association, and in 1976 the Taiwan Research and Extension Station, so Taiwan's public tea research facility, organized the very first tea competition together with the Lugu farmers. This was so initiated by Dr. Wu Zhenduo, who was at the time the director of this Taiwan Tea Research Center. I already talked about him because he's so influential in previous classes about Jinxuan. He's the inventor of Jinxuan tea cultivar, and also about Qingxing because he studied the origin of Qingxing. But today, again, he's at the start of this tea competition with the Lugu farmers in 1976. At first it was only competition that happened in the spring. After several years, once the competition was really well settled and getting more and more importance, it became bigger, and now it's also held in the winter. So not just for the spring, but also in the winter, because these two seasons have pretty similar conditions in terms of temperature and sunshine. So the teas come out pretty much very similar in terms of taste, and sometimes it will be difficult to say, oh, is it a spring or winter Dongding, because it's so similar. There are some differences, but not as big as with summer or the fall season, when it's much warmer in Taiwan, much more humid, and then the profile of the teas, you cannot make a high mountain oolong in these two seasons. High mountain oolong, very fresh ones, you can only make in spring and winter, really. In the other seasons, with higher temperatures, you will necessarily make more oxidized oolongs that lose their freshness a bit faster. So in the beginning, in 1976, this competition with the Lugu Farmers Association was really focused on Dongding teas from the region of Lugu, so medium elevation. We are around 600 meters in elevation. We have several villages around Lugu, Yonglong, we have Fenghuang, and a couple of others. And after a while, with the rise of high mountain oolongs that we saw from Alishan and Shan Lin Xi, farmers also started to use high mountain oolong maucha, spring high mountain oolong leaves, to turn them into this type of roasted oolong, and with very good results. And that's why nowadays all the best high mountain oolongs, all the best Dongding oolongs actually come from the high mountains, and maybe a minority come from Dongding, or those from Dongding area. They receive usually lower prices than those that were harvested in the high mountains. What else can we say? Why did they organize this competition? For several reasons. A competition helps to reassure the customers that it has been graded by independent judges. The teas nowadays, it's about 5,000 to 6,000 different lots, batches of tea that are submitted for each competition. So that's really a lot of tea to be judged. Half of it is thrown out, is deemed not good enough for the competition, because with the stamp from the competition, it's possible to sell these teas at a higher price. So it's many people really want to participate because it's going to assure them that they are going to be able to sell their teas very easily. But it's to make it very stringent, to make it very competitive. We have lots of participants. Only one farmer can submit one lot. We have 5,000 lots in total, and it's a two-step process. First, it's judged in Lugu by the farmers themselves. They judge the teas in a very blind way. The tea, when they are submitted, the names of the farmers are taken away and a number is assigned, and then a different number is reassigned to this batch for the testing, for the evaluation, so that the judges have absolutely no idea whose teas they are judging. And so they will throw away almost half of the teas that are submitted. Then they will get to judge in I think 3 levels the teas that they like, and the top 5% of the teas are sent to Yangmei, to this Taiwan Tea Research Center, and where the very best will be graded, so not by the tea farmers, but by the researchers and public employees who work as specialists of tea in this Taiwan Tea Research Center. And then they decide the top 10 teas of each spring or winter, and then the follow-ups are graded in 3 more categories. They first initiated this competition, so not only to help the farmers to sell their teas better, but also to preserve a certain skill set and a certain way of making tea. And Dr. Wu Zhendo, he's a Chinese from Fujian who came to Taiwan together with the Chiang Kai-shek during the civil unrest, and because he was actually trained in the Wui Mountains, what really the teas that he liked most are Wui Yen Cha, the original oolongs invented during the early Qing dynasty, and therefore he's really very much into roasted oolongs. And that's why, by establishing this competition together with the Lugu Farmers Association, this really helped to promote this type of roasted oolongs and the same, or let's say more a similar taste to Wui teas. So the shape might be different from Wui, where it's striped, long like a baozong, but in terms of oxidation level and roasting level, we are very similar to Yen Cha from Wui. And also the elevation in Lugu is a little bit similar to Wui. It is of course a bit different. It's not as rocky as in Wui, but for all these reasons, because also there is now an attempt to go for quality rather than for quantity in this competition, we have a bit again the same spirit as in we really trying to make a very good tea from very small, in a small amount, because each batch I think is submitted is roughly 20 gin, so 12 kilograms. These are so small batches of tea. So for me, Dongding Oolongs are a bit the cousins of Wu Yen Cha. So when we look at them, how can we tell this is competition tea? Typically, compared to the high mountain oolongs, what will be different is in a high mountain oolong, we will very often find here leaves with a stem. You can see here the stem. Here, in competition teas, the stems are almost always taken away. It's very difficult to see stems. Here is only one with a little bit of stem, but basically to give the leaves more cleaner appearance, the stems are mostly taken away. Then for the good grades, they also go through another machine that will select the color of the leaves, so that the leaves that have a very light or a too dark color will be removed, and they only keep a similar color, so it looks more uniform, and we compared to high mountain oolongs, here they don't care if the leaves are light or dark in color. There is some differences, but for competition oolong, it's a good point, because there are points for the appearance of the leaves. It's the leaves get a better score if they have a similar color, because similar color means similar oxidation and roasting, and then it means a more pure taste, because there are no leaves that are under roasted and some over roasted. If they all have the same roast level, they will have a more harmonious feel. The fact that they are very tightly rolled is also a good indication that it's a fresh roasted oolong, because as time goes by, and this is what we are going to see next week, the leaves of roasted oolongs are going to slightly unfold or open up with time. So this is what we will see next week. Sorry, it's really very hot today. Again, I'm sweating. Yeah, that's about it for the appearance. The smells are really wonderful. Very for me, it's almost like a smell of whiskey or cognac. It really has this very malty, dark smells that are amazing. So, how are we going to brew it? Like for all these classes, I'm going to use porcelain. We could use a competition set or simply a Gaiwan. So let's use simply a Gaiwan, which is really a very professional way of brewing your tea to test it. Most important, preheat. Preheat the Gaiwan, and especially also the lid of the Gaiwan. This is very important so that we are able to open up the leaves with the first brew. I'm not discarding the first brew. I'm not throwing away the wins, as some people say, because this is the very best scents and aromas come from the very first brew. So I don't want to throw them away. Now let's start to preheat. The second key to make a successful brew of roasted oolong from Dongding or from this area. Here now they are using Shan Lin Xi tea leaves, is really to have boiling water. That's why I'm really pushing my water to the limit, to the boiling point, because these leaves really need to unfold in order to release their aromas. There are two ways you could pour the water on the leaves. One very fast and give it really a strong pour, so to help them again to open up. But this has the effect that it will bring out a lot of roasted aromas from the leaves. Remember, these are leaves. Now this is from 2021, so it's already one year and a half, but still it's quite, it can still be considered a very fresh one. And the roast is a little bit strong in these modern competition oolongs. So I'm more inclined to do a very delicate pour. Yeah, put it here. I quickly want to give the leaves a bit more boost, but not too strong. And the rest of the leaves we can put back. Voila. And then we'll do a longer brew for two reasons. One is to give it time to open up, and also to a bit test, to push a little bit the leaves. I did not weigh the weight. I think I've used more than 3 grams definitely, so I don't have to wait 6 minutes for this one. But I'm going to look at the change in color of the brew on top of my Gaiwan in order to decide when I want to pour away. Now, I mentioned that in recent years the roast has been a little bit stronger than usual, and this dates back to a change they made a few years ago when they decided they would use RO, reverse osmosis water, to do their to brew their teas for the competition. When they are testing the tea for the competition, the water that they use is very important. So in the past they would use fresh water, fresh spring water from that is local, from Lugu. But in order to be a bit more scientific, I guess, and to let customers be able to do to obtain the very same brew, they decided a few years ago to use RO water. And this water is much flatter, lacks really life that you find in spring water. And this had the effect that in order to get more interesting flavors, the teas had to be roasted stronger. If they were just roasted a bit more mildly, the taste would not come out with this kind of very flat water. So this had really this impact, and now they are mulling to go back to the older times, and so that the teas won't be roasted so strongly. Now, of course, this can be an advantage for you if you're using our water, but if you are using a more lively water, then the way you can adjust is by using a bit less, or by storing it and letting it age, because with time the roast is going to decrease. But this is what we're going to talk about next week or the week after, if we are able to make the interview, my monthly interview with a tea lover. I hope to have it next week. Then in the next lesson, this is going to be our subject. Okay. You can see the leaves have opened up quite well for leaves that are quite roasted and that with only one brew. They're still a bit shriveled up, not completely open, but with this shows us that we can really make several brews. And you can see that I did not use so many leaves. How many leaves is really up to your personal taste, but the important one is that you are able to open the leaves. Now we can have a look at the color, the transparency. It's really very good, very transparent. Of course there are some debris, some really not powder, but some broken leaves at the bottom. This is normal, this is not dust, these are tea leaves. I'm not filtering them because tea leaves, it's like salad. If you drink or if you eat salad, it's not a problem, it's simply fibers. And the other reason I was doing a slow pour is so that I don't get just the roasting sense. The roast is the last piece of the process. It's the last step. So the roasting scents are more on the outside of the leaves and the freshness is more on the inside. And a good brew of roasted oolong is one that really mixes both the roast and the freshness. And this is what you get when you brew it slower with the first brew, because you enabled the leaves to open up and release also their fresh aromas from inside, and not just get the roasted aromas that are on the outside. A very good balance. Sweetness and a little bit of more de la mâche. We have more body that comes in on the palate, and that leaves a trace, that leaves its print, and you can feel the aftertaste in the mouth, on the throat. The throat is important. If something that we eat is too bitter, our throat will automatically become smaller to prevent us from eating it. So always pay attention to the throat. Does it become smaller to prevent you from drinking it? Then it's usually not a good thing. But if it remains open, then it's a sign that this is really welcomed by the body. Very, very smooth and rich. And of course, in this first brew, we have a lot of more warmer aromas of malt, corn, sugar, but also a bit an aftertaste that is fresh. Okay, and then we can look at the leaves, study them. Oh, here I have a good one. See how large it is. From the shape, we now recognize this is a Qingxing Oolong, not a Jinshuan. Also on the sides, actually does not have so much oxidation level. It is green in the inside, and the fact that it is a little bit shriveled is due to the roast, but it's a roast that that was not too strong and did not when it's too strong and the leaves are carbonized, they simply don't open up and they remain black all the time. Here, after one brew, we can already see a dark green color, and we can see that the leaf, this leaf has opened up almost completely. So the roast is really very well made to perfection in order not to burn and harm the leaves, but really to protect and also to add these roasting aromas to the tea. Okay, I think we have a better understanding now of these Hongshui Oolong, of these Dongding competition oolongs that are now coming from high mountains, are still made from Qingxing Oolong, harvested in winter or in spring, and this is still considered a fresh one, even though it's 1 year old. And we are going to talk a bit more how to store it and how it is going to age in our next class. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next week.